and perhaps a possible timeline. Let me start out by saying I can't tell you that because we've made no firm decision on it. But what I believe the entire meeting agreed on today, if we agreed on anything, is for a need to have some definitive end to this process, and in getting there, that the efficiency that we are currently operating at needs to be improved and improved significantly. We recognize that several of our processes are not operating with maximum benefit and with maximum efficiency, and as a consequence we have agreed to take steps in relation to speeding up that. And what are some of the steps that we are looking at? This sore issue of the first issue, we are still anxiously awaiting a decision or a position on the addition of new workstations. I maintain that it is it is the singular most important factor in improving the pace at which this process will be concluded. With the inclusion of 2 new workstations during this week, you have seen that there has been an increase in the number of boxes being counted per day, and I believe that with the addition of more stations, that the number can rise and rise significantly. That is to say, the number of boxes that we will process per day. As we speak, we have identified several locations within the facility that those new counting stations can be placed. We have also, as we speak, I don't know the position insofar as it relates to the COVID-19 task force, but I guess my position on this is known by now. We know what the guidelines are. We know what the extent of the facility here is. I believe that we just need to go ahead and implement them. But that's just my belief. So that is one of the factors that I believe that can greatly improve this process. The other factors that we are working on is this 5 o'clock, 5:30 afternoon malaise that is there. And if you look at the statistics that I have seen yesterday afternoon, for example, you are seeing a general, across the board running out of the clock. Some stations closed at 5:32. One station closed at 5:32. Another one closed at 5:34 yesterday. And if that does not lend itself to the interpretation that there is some deliberateness in this process, specifically designed to waste that next hour and a half that is available in the afternoon and not do another box, then I don't know what other evidence we need to show that is so. And you see the general sloth in that afternoon process to run to that time so as to not have a thing. In that regard, what we are trying to do this afternoon, and I've undertaken, myself, other commissioners who avail themselves, and members of the Secretariat will go close or just around 5 o'clock or thereafter, station to station, and look at the efficiency and the process that they are doing with a view of ensuring that the maximum efficiency is being generated at that time so that at least one other box can be assigned, or one or more other boxes depending on size and time and etc., to make use of that time in the afternoon. Because every day that you lose an hour in a station, multiplying it by the number of stations across, you're losing almost 1 work day per station. And that cannot lend well to our efficiency. In relation to other methods that we are looking at to speed up the process, we are looking at identifying by now. We've been almost 3 weeks in this process. We are looking at identifying the best practices that are emerging within stations, Obviously, you have persons or teams that will be more efficient than others. We are looking to ensure that that efficiency as is exhibited in one station and once can be replicated in other stations so that the maximum benefit of that efficiency as is enjoyed in one station can be spread throughout the other stations. We are also, and it's a concern that I raised in the commission, in relation to the time taken at the time of observations. And it is my considered view that these observations are also geared at slowing down this process. So you have, while those observations come in such a manner that delay the process. You've had some, in some cases, 107, 108 names or serial numbers who are being asked or inquired about. You're talking about adding a half an hour to the boarding time of every box, of that box, which, when you're looking at efficiency, a half an hour delay is certainly too much. So in terms of speeding up the process and all of that, the close of play activities, like I just spoke about, the necessity for new stations, the allocation of those stations, and all of those. And in terms of the pace of the process, one of the issues that we have discussed is incentivizing performance, so that stations who perform better or employees who are required who perform better may benefit from an incentive so as to ensure that or to perhaps persuade them to act at some greater level of efficiency and display better performance. These factors will once we have these factors implemented, it obviously will impact on the timeline, and what we have agreed to is to make a concerted effort at the implementation of these factors so as to improve the process, improve efficiency, and to review it within a day or two and see how well it is impacting, and that includes, of course, hopefully including new stations, so that we can look at it and then better calculate a timeline for conclusion. So that is where we are at this point. We are, at least I am concerned as to the impact this will have, or the extension of this process, or prolonged continuation of this process will have on the presence of our observers from the CARICOM, observer team, because I believe that it is unfair to have persons invited for a specific period and then you're asking them to continue to participate in this process for an undefined process, for an undefined period. So we are looking as best as possible to do that, so that there will be a defined time. I believe personally, and that's a view shared by the Commission, that there should be some definition in time, a definite end date to this process. And that will, of course, be communicated publicly in the form of an addendum to the order that was published on the 4th of May. The final issue I want to touch on is this proliferation of attacks on GECOM and its processes. You're hearing, particularly from one stakeholder, repeated and continued attacks on the work that GECOM has done. Even though, particularly in relation to the conduct of the 2nd March 2020 elections, you have seen the very persons who are now attacking our processes of GECOM were the very persons who were hailing it as being a free, fair, and transparent and credible process. This sentiment was no doubt shared insofar as it relates to the conduct of elections on elections day by all of the observers who observed the process. So these new attacks as to the process that GECOM executed on March 2nd in the conduct of elections must be suspect in some way. And it's quite unfortunate that you have the commission and its operation being subject to such constant attacks from it. And I would want to denounce that first and foremost in that regard.
Mr. Gunraj, in the discussions on the additional stations, can you say, apart from waiting on the task force, what were some of the other hurdles that would have been identified? And in relation to the public health ordinance, what legal hurdles are there? Let's say regarding social distancing and whatnot. If GECOM was to go ahead and have these stations put in place, would GECOM be breaching any laws?
To answer your last question first, as usual, Gary, I don't believe that they will be in breach of any laws or provisions of any law if we are to go ahead and establish the stations without more. I don't believe so. In relation to the guidelines that were set up initially or that were suggested initially, and the World Health Organization guidelines, which I believe is the world standard on this, I would want to say that the Guyana Elections Commission in the execution of this function is doing exceptionally well. Immediately before coming out here, I stopped at one of two wash stations that are available in the forecourt of this facility. On every table, and I'm talking outside here as I'm seeing it, on every table there's hand sanitizer, there's a medical station. As you go in, everywhere you turn, there are sanitizing stations. I know that GECOM has hired a company specifically to perform these services. I walking there every day. You see stations being sanitized regularly, workstations after I think 1 or 2 boxes. I think it's a time sensitive issue, and based on convenience, they are sanitizing the stations very regularly. The very surroundings are being sanitized. The bathrooms are being sanitized. Insofar as the physical layout, I understand, I have seen there's a limit on the number of persons in rooms, and it is being rigidly enforced. Persons are sitting socially distanced. If you look at the tables, there are pretty large tables out there, but there are 4 chairs only. Persons are wearing masks, and this has become a peer policed process, because you look around and you see someone without a mask and you ask him, where's your mask? Cover your nose. People are doing that because I believe it's part of the social responsibility where this is concerned. So it is being done. I want to say that we are following the guidelines and perhaps are in effect exceeding those guidelines. So there's nothing stopping us from putting in 2 new stations this afternoon.
I know GECOM would have said, or the Secretary rather, would have said that there is enough resources to ensure the exercise is completed. Can you say, as a commissioner, what a day this exercise is costing?
I can't.
Well,
I can't. I don't.
Has the Secretary given an indication as to how much it would cost?
No.
In
No.
drafting the plan?
No, it was not a costed plan, and as we speak, I've made no inquiry in relation to the cost of the execution of the exercise, and
It was not a costed plan?
it's not a costed plan, meaning
Meaning the Secretary never envisioned a budget?
I have no doubt that the Secretariat might have envisioned a budget. I'd hope so, but in terms of that information coming to the Commission, it was never requested and it was never discussed. Thank you.
Working tomorrow?
Yes, we are. The order says every day, including Sundays and holidays.